Welcome back to the Insurgent Mindset. I'm Rondo Moses.
And I'm Matt Tice, and this is a podcast about challenger thinking in a world shaped by disruptions.
Yes, and in each episode, we explore the strategies and leadership mindset that helps businesses break from the pack and stay ahead in rapidly changing business environments.
That's right, Rondo. And we try to bring new case studies, challenger perspectives, and importantly, insights from leaders who are applying these mindsets to kind of break through the pack in this really uncertain environment. And today we have a terrific guest, Randall Makin, from most recently from RedEye, an engineering business focused on creating drawing management systems and a few other really exciting things. So I think you'll really enjoy Randall today.
Yeah, and so we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and check out our companion blogs at insurgentsgroup.com for a summary of the key takeaways from each episode. Now, let's get into today's conversation, Matt.
All right, terrific. So I've known Randall for a little while. He's a bit of a cowboy. He's got a really interesting perspective on a number of topics. So it'd be great to have Randall hear his perspective and really dig into some of his insights going through his career, both as a corporate guy and an entrepreneur, and more recently, a corporate guy again. So Randall, why don't you join us and we'll kick off.
No problems. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Great to see you. So I think for our listeners, it'd be great to maybe for you to unpack and develop a bit your journey, like take us through maybe the last decade and help us understand, where have you come from? Where did you, get the idea for Red Eye? How did that develop you today, Randall?
A little bit longer ago than a decade, but I grew up on a farm in a small country town in Victoria, in Australia, and we were pretty resourceful there. We didn't have too many additional tools or things like that. But sort of, I used to dream about working in the coal mines. So I'm not sure why. There was no logic to that. Um, but as I grew up, it's like, oh, I wanted to work in the coal mines, and I decided that I'd be an engineer in order to achieve that goal. So I was pretty much a run-of-the-mill engineer. I worked at a few different companies as I matured as an engineer, but I ended up in the coal mining sector, and this is sort of where the idea of RedEye was born. So as an engineer, I become increasingly frustrated with not being able to find the right drawings to do my job. So there was one particular incident where we were on a coal port, and we went there to do some inspections and rectify like a fault, and it took us like 6 hours to get the right drawings and 15 minutes to fix the problems. We had the drawings,
Hmm.
and it was like, wow, um, that's a problem. And I sort of swallowed in that for a couple of years as an engineer, and we had a small engineering consultancy at the time. So as that sort of matured, it's I'm trying to give you what was the entrepreneurial trigger. And there was literally a day where I woke up and I thought, you know what, no one else is going to solve this problem. The big guys don't get it. They're building tools for the engineering companies. We just want a simple tool for the people that use the engineering drawings. Um,
Hmm.
so wallowed in that for about 18 months, and then it's like, stupidly, we're in Australia. We've got no right to start a software company over here 10 years ago. But yeah, my co-founder and I sort of jumped on the bus and went, oh well, let's try and solve this problem.
Hmm. So
Very
then
interesting.
your co-founder, give us a sense of how the two of you came together and what was it like making that leap, Randall, from, the safe engineering sort of role to something really quite uncertain.
To be honest, I didn't approach that with any brazenness, or I didn't really know what I was getting into. I was super uncertain. It's probably the reason why I teamed up with a co-founder. It was that lack of self-confidence and belief in myself in order to dig that up. And to be fair, like as a couple of guys, that we never really thought of ourselves as being worthy of starting a software company. It's the domain of the big Americans. We just thought we'd try and see what happened. Like, we had an inner belief, of course. You have this, I'm going to make it work belief. But having a co-founder to bounce ideas off and do stupid things, like, we wasted money. Like, the things we did, you look back and go, you didn't need to do that. Like, I'll get my favorite story is taking a shit at Sequoia. A couple of Aussie guys roll up to Sandgate Road in Silicon Valley and roll into Sequoia Venture Capital. Hey, Will. Hey, guys, how are you? We're here for our meeting. What meeting? No, we just thought we'd pop in. We might be able to find someone. We got this idea that we want to fund. And basically, the security guard, we were fresh off the plane, and basically the security guard looked at us and went, "What are you idiots doing?" Anyway, in the end, we needed to go to the toilet, so sort of said, "Do you mind if we use the bathroom?" So that was the start of our entrepreneurial journey. Yeah, we took a crap at Sequoia.
Did you get the meeting?
No, not from any of those big places on Sand Road. We ended up poking around a little bit with a guy, Mark Andreessen Horowitz, so A16Z. We got a little bit of I can't remember the name of the guy, but Mark, their sales guy, he ended up giving us a couple of meetings over the time, which was really good. Like, he was all about how to run a sales process. It was actually quite really, like, he was friendly enough, but as you referred to in the intro, we were a couple of cowboys from Queensland.
Yeah. But what's interesting about your story, the way you describe it, Randall, is that you started with the customer problem. I mean, you were the customer. You had a problem that no one was cared about, and you said, I'm gonna solve this myself, right? I'm gonna find a way to solve this myself, which is the best way to come up with solutions that really stick, right? It's really going from the perspective of customer. So you didn't really have, I mean, I don't know if you spoke to other engineers and about what they were experiencing with drawings and the delays with getting drawings and having them at the ready. But it's the fact that you had that knowledge is what I think put you on that right path to come up with a credible solution, right?
Yeah, it's the strong domain expertise. I'm not sure if I articulated it, but it just got to that day in my life where I woke up. It's like, no one's going to do this. Like, I had this little fire lit inside my belly. And it's like, risk aside, I'm going to have a go at that. But we did talk to a lot of our clients about the problem. Like, people had document control systems and there's really strong brands in that space, but they just didn't deal with the niche that was engineering drawings.
Mhm.
Engineering drawings are quite different for those of you that aren't engineers. People think of a workflow as step A, step B, step C, but engineering drawings, here's version 1, version 2, 3, and 4 could all happen in parallel, and then they have to come back together somehow. So the workflows are really quite complicated. The rendering and engineering drawing, I mean, Autodesk and Bentley don't really want you to be able to render their drawings because that's how they keep you in their ecosystem. So there's a whole bunch of technical challenges around that as well. Like, in a dock control system, you'd look at an engineering drawing to be the size of a postage stamp, and it's like, I can't even read that. Like, it just didn't print properly. Little things like that. But yeah, we went to 5 or 6 of our key clients in the mining sector here in Queensland, and asked them what they were doing, and asked them what the solution would look like. And Rondo, they just said, make it easy for the people that use engineering drawings. Like, there's enough tools for a dock controller, and there's enough tools for the engineering design consultancies. It's the people in the field with grease on their hands that need to pick up a drawing and go, okay, what's going on here? They're the ones that really we needed to service, and they weren't our direct customer. That's sort of who we helped out.
Mhm.
Some really, really horrific statistics on finding engineering drawings in large companies. I won't mention the largest mining company in the world, but we did a time in motion studied those guys, and it was taking them on average 22 minutes of effort to find an engineering drawing. It's just like
The math of hours of wasted there is
right.
really easy to imagine. Yeah,
And then you start to think, well, okay, 22 minutes to find a drawing. How many drawings do you look at a week? Oh,
Right.
1,000. And why are you looking at the drawings? Oh, so that we build the right thing, or so that we can repair it quickly. They're all problems that are much bigger than the cost of solving the engineering drawing problem. Yeah, the engineering drawing problem is almost a symptom.
Right.
The problem you're solving is huge. I'm in a breakdown situation for a mining company or an energy company. Every hour is $100,000. You can find a drawing. If you can find a drawing in 20 minutes, that's 30 grand
Right. So it's
versus
the
two.
value capture from having that engineering drawing quickly that's so important, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we sort of started from, is just there. And man, that first minimum viable product, that was band-aids and sticky tape.
mm, they almost always are. So then
Mm.
just from Band-Aids and sticky tape through this up, Randall. And you mentioned some of the big gorillas that you were competing against or, challenging the edges of. I'd be interested to hear your story of how you're punching up as a small Queensland-based software company, the couple of cowboys that are, don't have any software experience. So maybe the mindset that you had as, taking a fresh look at this was, something that was maybe unique and a little bit different. So just take us through that sort of journey and give us a sense of give us a sense of that mindset.
Yeah, okay. The we sort of started with a couple of developers and built something. We did have a little bit of software expertise in co-founder and I, but really we were right at the start of cloud. So that was probably the first journeys. We looked in and we employed some developers and we said, oh, look, we want to do this in the cloud. And they're going,
Mm.
oh, no one's adopted the cloud yet. Oh, it's not time. And it's like, nah, we sort of think that we've got to do this in the cloud. Like all these other people have got these legacy problems because they're client server, and we wanted to make it easy. So cloud makes it easy and run it in the web. And so we sort of started there. Um, in terms of taking on competition, there's a few products in the market, and there's definitely more now than what they were when we started. But if you, I think probably my lesson is, and I didn't know this at the time, so it's a little bit of a cheat code, is the big guys didn't actually care about the problem we were solving, because the big guys. So let's look at your Autodesks and Bentleys and Hexagons and people like that. They're all very good at the design phase of engineering drawings, and they sell their product typically to engineering design companies. You know, so I won't sort of use the names, but those bigger engineering design companies with 1,000 or 2,000 or 20,000 employees. So their revenue stream comes from them, whereas we were actually trying to get the revenue from the end user, which was the client. So here we have here we have a couple of guys that probably don't have enough credibility to sell anything, selling a cloud-based solution, which is new tech, into the Queensland mining sector, which is slow to change. It was sort of, we were just fighting that. We fought every battle, yeah. And anyway, we ended up knew enough people, had enough friends, I guess, from our years of engineering, and we got a couple of those first people that actually paid for the product. I remember, the first client gave us 100 grand off the back of the project that he had a little bit of cash left. He said, "Oh, what will 100 grand get me?" And it's like, "Oh, we'll do it for 100 grand." It's like, it's literally nowhere near enough money to do the job. But anyway, we worked over Christmas, and it was all hands on deck, and it was a lot of labor and just flintstoning, that word, to get the drawings done. And then halfway through, the guy goes, "Oh, we've got this fire system audit. Can you find all the fire drawings for us?" So it just sort of morphed from there. We went from something really basic at the start, and then we started adding features and functionality to help solve those problems. Because we're in the cloud, we managed to attract some pretty cool people, because then the cloud started to get a bit of traction, and what developers are like, they're on the next bandwagon. So we got a couple of really good devs in, and we got the journey started, and then once we had a little bit of revenue, that was enough for us to raise some capital.
And what was the capital raising process, Randall? How did you approach that? And I assume that you didn't go back to Sequoia. So where did the capital come from? And kind of just thinking through how you managed that process. Again, what would you have done differently there? Was it easy to get the capital? Was it difficult?
Super hard to get capital. Like, all the cliches are true, 1,000 cups of coffee and stuff like that. So probably we didn't know how to raise capital. We didn't know how to target the right companies to raise capital. We went to America because, it was the home of dreams. So we thought, oh, we'll find someone in America. And everyone was super polite in America. Like, no one wanted to say no. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Just go and get a couple more clients. And it's like, oh, we're running out of money here. We
Right.
need someone to help us go that next step. But probably in hindsight, as hard as it is, I think raising capital is hard, but it also takes your focus away. I think probably if you can bootstrap what you're doing, then I would definitely sort of think more around the bootstrapping lines, until you really get that traction and you want to go from 1 to 10 to 100. Yeah, that's probably my lesson from raising capital. It's a bit of a drug, raising capital.
Mm.
And what did you have to give up to
Mm.
sort of get to that next stage as a business? Was it
It was.
Yep.
Yeah, we had some friends that sort of pumped in a little bit of money at the start. I think it's easy to say it was 250 grand. Yeah, so we made that stretch probably 12 months. No one takes wages. We weren't taking wages and stuff because I still had
Right.
my engineering on the side. So that was sort of keeping us busy. We had a few false starts on what we were doing in business as well. So that's also true. So I guess, how would I answer that question? That raising capital, I don't know. I'll go back to that. Yeah, raising capital is hard, and it's distracting, and it's probably not ideal. Yeah, and until you got traction and until you've actually got a few clients, I think that's probably when to start that journey. Almost want the VCs looking at you going, oh, what are these guys doing? I want a piece of that pie. Hey, I got this crazy idea.
Right.
Does
I mean,
it
that's
shift
the
the
big
power
difference
dynamic?
between the angels and the VCs, right? They want traction,
Yeah.
obviously. Sorry, Rondo, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, is that to your point, Randall, is that because of the power dynamic? I mean, they know that you need them more than they use, or they don't see the value yet, so they want more to have a stake in the venture itself. Like, why do you say that it's better to sort of bootstrap yourself first if you can?
It wasn't our first investor was Macquarie. Yeah. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So it was they were a good VC. I think we did 20% one year, so probably a little bit on the high side. Didn't leave too much powder left. It wasn't so much the power dynamic, as Matt will attest to. I don't really care much for power. I think probably as founders, we were naive to we needed to listen to the VC, and that was really hard. So you're young and you're getting stuff done, and you get a little bit, you feed your ego a little bit in what you're doing. But the VCs have got, like, they do this all day, every day. You're not special to them. You're right, Rondo. But they do have some good indicators for you. They can tell you what sort of gross margins you're looking for. They can sort of tell you sectors are going up and down. They can probably introduce you to people as well. But we probably weren't mature enough to understand the sort of advice they were giving us, and that constraint on us. Even though in hindsight we should have listened, we definitely sort of pushed back a little bit against that. Yeah, there was an opportunity to learn from the VC, just the generic stuff. They don't understand the problem at all. And you sort of, how can they? I mean, they've got 10 or 15 or 20 startups that they all want 100x in their pipe. So yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you to 100x.
Randall, this is a kind of your comment here is a recurring theme of the podcast. I think this keeps coming up over and over again. This idea of constraints of the mind, where how your mindset can be constrained by your own internal perspective on the problem, on the capital raise, whatever that might be, in terms of, in your case as an insurgent trying to grow this business, and maybe getting in your own way to achieve that. Now, you've kind of articulated that it wasn't so much ego as more anxiety, but maybe you can develop that idea for us, like kind of bring to life more the mindset and what those constraints of the mind might have looked like, and maybe also some of the kind of the key assumptions that you had to challenge as you went through that growth journey.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that. I think the key mindset, and again, there's a lot of cliches that are going to roll out here, but you don't know what you don't know. And if you're being successful, you read the books from Zuckerberg and Jobs and Aaron Levy. He was the box guy. Yeah, he was super popular at the time. There are all these people. There's these people that are cutting out or cutting a swathing through the industry and changing things and stuff like that. But I think when you do this the first time, you don't realize that you don't need to be the hero in the story. You need to surround yourself with those people that have done it before, that have seen it before, that can just, for want of a better word, give you a little smack in the mouth once in a while and go, you know what, you need to listen to this. So you've got to be prepared to listen, and you've got to surround yourself with people that have done it before. And I guess, again, with the benefit of hindsight, when you're doing it for the first time, everyone's ideas seem to be amazing. It's like, oh, that's right, and that's right, and that's right. But they're all ideas, and you're not mature enough to go, okay, that's an idea, and that's an idea, and let's process those ideas and actually pick the thing that you're gonna bet on. And if you make a mistake, well, in a month's time, you go, oh, that wasn't right. Let's back that out and let's go again. So, but surrounding yourself with people that can be super helpful. You have to resonate with them. Yeah, you have to respect them as well. And even we had some pretty good arguments with our initial investors because they didn't understand. They were really just trying to help us be successful. It was us that didn't understand, but at the time you don't understand. Like, you're sitting there going, why are you making it so hard for me? Why do I have to report? The sales will come. Trust me. That stuff just doesn't cut it once you want to scale up.
Right. So from a governance perspective, were some of your investors also on a board, your board of advisors as well? And so that's where some of that feedback was coming from?
Yeah. And our initial setup was bad around the board, but I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, they would, every time we raised capital, someone else wanted a board seat. And again, we just didn't know what you didn't know. So you set up a board and everyone says, oh, I'm going to give you some money. I want a board seat so I can help take the direction of the company or keep an eye on the company. And, and it's good, but then all of a sudden you look around, you've got 9 people on the board for a company that's, you know, not doing the revenue that deserves 9 people sitting around the table.
Right.
So, and then we didn't understand. I actually really think there's value in understanding the dynamic, excuse me, of a chairman, like understanding the board sits up here, the chairman funnels to the CEO, and then the ELT delivers the strategy. We didn't even
Hmm.
understand that basic concept at the time. And you look back and go, oh, if we had known that, you instead of as a co-founder, I'm trying to manage seven seven board members or 7 people that are giving us money, and they were all board members in the end. You spend half your life keeping them happy, and then you got to try and do your job. It doesn't work. Yeah.
All right, Randall. So from there, then take us through. So now you're starting to get scale. You got money. You're getting traction. Your clients are coming in. You're getting good feedback. You're making adjustments to the software. Now pivot us to the exit, right? So at what point, I'm sure you would have had pressure from your investors to kind of move that along. But when did you start thinking about that? And again, back to the mindset, like what were the things on your mind in terms of getting the business ready for exit? Who's the buyer that you're going after, or not? Maybe what are the types of buyers that you're considering? And take us on that journey at the back end that really describes how you pivoted from, okay, actually we got something that works here. Now let's turn it into a value event.
Um, to be fair, I never wanted to sell. I just I wasn't. I was in it because I was solving a problem for the world. And I think there's
Mm.
a certain thinking there that probably runs a bit rough over some of the entrepreneurs. I see entrepreneurs that start a company that they're going to make $1 million or $10 million, or this is the thing, and they're relatively successful. Yeah, they got a playbook, they raise capital, they find some tech, they scale a tech up and exit. I was a little bit, different. I'm a believer in trying to build a forever company. Like the problem that RedEye solves is a forever problem. It's sort of been around for 100 years. I think it's going to be around for 100 more. Um, so just being part of that. So that's my way of saying we were honest with the business, saying, look, someone's going to come along and buy us. But what we want to do is we want to create that forever business. We want to be the global hub of engineering drawings and be continually curious about how those drawings create value for our clients. And that was the vision statement that we sort of bubbled along, but that wasn't right till the very end. That was in year 10, not in year 2. And it's like,
Mm.
if I had to put that in year 2, it would have been a way different journey, because we would have had a focus that everyone could drive towards. But anyway, the journey of selling was funny actually. I inadvertently cowboyed the Americans. To be fair, Matt, I showed up. I didn't understand how important these people were, and that their company was $27 billion revenue and stuff like that. So I'm super transparent, super honest, Randall. And we sit down to dinner at Las Vegas, and they buy me a big fat steak. And it's like, hey, how good's this? And they're like, so what's wrong with your company, Randall? I said, oh, how long you got, mate? I'm just listing all these things that are wrong with the company. And and I'm watching them, and I'm thinking, I've done something wrong here, because they go, huh? And anyway, I ended up, I'm reasonably good friends with Richard. And, it's like, what's going on here, Richard? And he said, why are you so honest? I got nothing to hide, mate. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. He's like, got to buy this. So it was sort of funny. Yeah, there was no pomp and ceremony in selling the company. It was just, here's my direction. Here's what I want to, where I think it needs to go. I articulated the diamonds in the company. What were the things that we just did that were so much better than other people, and that our clients really valued. I sort of got through on that level to him. The software become a little bit secondary to that stuff moves so quickly now. Like, what was the trajectory for change, and how were you keeping things up to date and stuff like that? So anyway, as it turned out, it was a pretty miserable journey selling a company. It took almost 18 months. I think ultimately we answered over 650 quite technical questions about the company. Again, when you get K&L Gates on as your opposing lawyer, their job is to find any dirt at all in the company, and they did find some stuff that was a little bit untoward or a little bit loose. So I guess that's the life lesson as well. Yeah, don't do anything wrong if you're going to plan on selling your company, because you can't hide it when someone starts digging through all the emails and the books and stuff like that. Everything comes to the surface. So, and you know me, Matt, I'm a pretty straight up and down guy. I sort of value ethics pretty highly, and governance and stuff like that. So we had pretty clean books, yeah, but there's little things that they you haven't paid superannuation for this guy that was here for 3 months, and it's like, oh really, like that level of detail. So needles in the haystack. Those lawyers are getting paid their big lawyer money to find something wrong. So they did. I remember looking in the data room with the acquirer. The acquirer rang me up and said, "Look, you got to get through these questions faster, Randall." And yeah, I didn't do myself any favors. And it's like, Bill, you've got 50 people in the data room. Our whole company is only 50 people. Like, we can't process the answers as quick as you can ask the questions. He's like, well, if you want to sell, that's what you got to do. Proper American style, yeah. It's a bit of a lesson. Anyway, it was good.
All right, so you sold the business, and then now, so reflecting on that whole experience, Randall, give us your, what's the advice for the leader at any stage of their career seeking to, take on a challenge like this? But I'm also interested in your next stage as well. So maybe you could follow us up with, you sold RedEye now. Was it a regretful thing or not? And where does it take you from there? So advice, and then where to next?
Look, I think I'll go back to the board and me. I was a reluctant seller, and I, at the time, my chairman, I nuzzled up to the chairman and said, I don't want to sell, don't you? And he said, yeah, Randall, you're mad. I was like, yeah, okay, well, do me one solid. And he's like, what's that? And I said, let me vote last when we go around the table. So he's like, yeah, all right. So, we were voting on the sale, and all the investors. It had been a rough journey. We'd probably raised a little bit too much capital. We were considered a risky business at the time. So we sort of went through that, and everyone agreed that it was time to sell. We'd had a bit of trouble with the CEO as well. I don't really want to go into the details of that, but if there's a problem between the CEO and the board, it really makes times tough. So yeah, that was a pretty tough time, and that's sort of when I got parachuted in right at the end to be the CEO. And I was lucky. I guess I'd learned enough about listening to people at that time. The chairman actually put his arms around me and said, "You've never done this, have you?" No. He said, "Right, just do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm the CEO." And he said, "Yep, just do what I tell you when I tell you." Okay. And he got the board sorted out really quickly and got some really good advice for us, and moved the process through. And of course, then we sell, and the president, the acquiring president, comes over, and I like that story. I had a job for 6 minutes. He comes into my office, and he's come over from America, and it's all, oh yeah, thanks, Bill, and yeah, this is an amazing company. You've done an amazing thing here, Randall. And I said, oh, sounds like there's a butt coming here, Bill. He said, yeah, we don't need you. Gee, that's quick. Didn't even get to smoko. So anyway, he was like, it was probably a little bit hurtful personally, but give me a couple of days and I got over it. But that transition into a large company was super. Like, I was a bit disappointed. I wanted to do more of that large company stuff, but that journey was cut off. And that was more about, like, when you become a large company, it's just about the behaviors, the things you do and
Mm,
don't tolerate, the tools you give the people so they can do their jobs. That was what it was, less about the products now, and it was more about, hey, we're a highly functioning team of people that are super good at our job, and you just throw us another thing and we'll make it happen. So that was quite interesting. The Fortive or Accruent, they use the Danaher system. It's a pretty good system. Yeah, it's a little bit like selling. If you have a sales process, you sell 57% more things than if you don't. And if you have a business operating system, then you just get through stuff. Get
mhm.
through stuff better. I haven't probably answered your question, but that well. But yeah. Then at the end of that, I had a couple of months off. I was probably a little bit emotionally and physically destroyed after that. It was a pretty hard 18 months, getting through all those things. Lots of, trying to run a business and sell a business. It's literally double the workload.
Mm.
It's not a fun journey. So I had that 9 months off, and then I got to start back up at Waterline, which was the company where the idea had originally come from. So I went back to Waterline I'm of course still a shareholder here, but then sort of got into the new business function here.
And so, based on your experience at RedEye and all you went through there, what learnings are you bringing to your work at Waterline?
Um, the biggest one is, I think I had to work really hard at RedEye to build an ELT. Like, the ELT was totally dysfunctional when I got there, and just the behaviors. So I think as a leader, you've got to behave in a genuine way. So I'm the sort of leader that likes to build an ELT that's empowered and sort of moves as a pack together. When I arrived at RedEye, there was a lot of infighting and people throwing problems over the fence, and that's not mine, and stuff like that. So the first learning is you've got to have a highly functioning ELT. Again, Lencioni, 5 dysfunctions of a team. The ELT's got to be your number one team. Probably learnt that lesson a little bit late in life as well. So that's the first thing. So that's one good lesson for Waterline. The other thing is that having a bit of IP and building a product around some IP is, the multipliers or the value proposition for a product versus a services company is ridiculous. Yeah, like we got revenue multipliers when we sold RedEye, whereas we'll get EBIT multipliers for the value of a services company, which is Waterline. So it's about trying to build that value, that intrinsic value in your business now. So lots of lessons. Like, I can pretty much build another software company inside RedEye. Yeah, it's not going to be that hard.
It's a really interesting point because we've explored a little bit on the podcast, the disruption of professional services and how the traditional pyramid is breaking down and being eaten from the bottom by software companies and offshoring and AI and other things.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, in a lot of these firms, accounting, law, et cetera, a lot of this value, the new value, is being created by those that have created IP around particular workflows, and not by the not by the services companies. You know what I mean? So their value as a percentage of the total is in steep decline, exactly for the reason that you just described. So what advice would you give a managing director, a board, a team of partners in professional services, law, accounting, consulting, engineering consulting, recruiting, marketing? It's all the same business model, really. That idea of how do we find that IP and productize it? What's the advice there, Randall? Because I think this is a universal problem that we're facing in the industry.
Yeah, I think you've got to probably try and encourage your people to let them know there's a safe space to innovate and find that product. So I think the ideas will come from within. Um, I think there's also a little bit of me that says you, like certain people can innovate and certain people can't. Like I can't follow the rules. I'm sorry, Matt. It's every time I do something, I'm doing it and going, well, I wonder if I could automate this, you know. So once you find that IP and point of difference, I think the way to think about that as a managing director or a CEO is you've got to, I believe you've got to group up people that solve a problem together to create the innovation place. So if you become, oh, we're all generalists, there's no room for innovation. Like everyone sort of dabbles in things. But if I become a specialist in a thing, then and you empower the people with some tooling to go, well, he's a code, he's a tech guy that floats around and he can help you write some programs and stuff if you want. Or not, I mean, your old mate AI is writing most of that now, but just empower them and go, and then they'll go, oh, here's this really repetitive task. And then on top of that, there's the repetitive task, but then there's this, you'll end up with a data set that no one else has got. It's super valuable. And it could be like I've seen everything from, I know all the mining equipment in Queensland. Someone has a database for that inside their company. Like it's not public knowledge, how many trucks and shovels and drag lines and all that stuff. And then once you've got that list, oh, we know how much it costs to run each one of those machines. And we know that Glencore's drag lines are XYZ efficient and BHP drag lines are ABC efficient. And then you can start looking at, well, why are these ones more or less efficient? That's what you can work. Once you've got a data set that no one else has got, then you can sort of start bolting things around that. And engineers don't like to charge for their value; they like to charge for their time. So that's the other challenge we sort of get. It's an emotional challenge here. Like I had even a conversation yesterday with someone who's like, oh, why are we so expensive? And it's like, don't you want to be paid? Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're going to take a pay cut? Nah. Well, that's why we're expensive.
Right. So closing the circle then, Randall, I guess coming back all the way back to your original point is find a unique problem to be solved and put the right people behind it, get some wood behind that, give people the oxygen to innovate and keep them focused and find that balance, I think is, it's good advice, right? So
Yeah,
and
it's almost a playbook, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard in the heat of battle when you're super busy and you got clients breathing down your neck and you've got to have these deliverables get out the door. You've somehow got to keep an eye on these other things and not.
How do you overcome the internal resistance to that, Randall? One of the things we see a lot with incumbents, they're afraid to innovate on one hand, but to your point, they're so caught up in the flow of their existing model, which in professional services, it's obviously fee for hour, project, dot, 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 right? So being able to kind of break out of that and maybe look at the business a little bit differently but most importantly, you're going to get a lot of resistance. So how do you as a leader break down that resistance and sort of create that permission to play almost?
I'm talking theoretical now because I think we're at that point. We're at that point in Waterline now. I, I'll reflect back on business valuation. If people are trying to build more value in the business, which is how you survive, which is how you weather a storm. Yeah, a high value business can weather a storm. So going back to what's the valuation on a piece of software? Yeah, like you'll get a revenue multiplier on a good software, whereas you'll only ever get an EBIT multiplier on a services company. So I think it's around just that raw education about we're trying to build business value here. We're trying to build business value. We'll end up with an employee share options program that you'll be part of. But the way to create value is this. This is how people value software, or probably
IP,
the
whatever. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
the real. I wrote down on my notes here. Probably the thing we didn't understand at RedEye, and I also think we don't really use well here, is the value of the network, like the cold start problem, Andrew Chen, like just understanding how to grow a network. And we tripped over ourselves and got that at RedEye, because an engineering drawing is created by an engineering company, goes into RedEye, gets sent to a construction guy, stays in RedEye, goes to a maintenance guy who finds it in RedEye and marks it up and keeps it. So we actually inadvertently created this network between the engineering companies, the constructor, and the lifetime owner. And I think that's the other thing that is super valuable in companies. Yeah? If you can find a network that you can extrapolate. Andrew Chen talks about Uber and the way they do it mostly, but that's a really good example of how do you get your people to actually have both sides of the equation, and then sort of create this barrier to entry or this moat that other people can't do because you've got too many pieces in the puzzle.
Very good, Randall. Thank you so much. I think we covered a lot of ground here. Certainly a very rich experience in career. Look forward to hearing how these ideas are progressed in your new life post RedEye. And certainly thank you for joining us and
Absolutely.
giving us your perspective on the insurgent mindset as an entrepreneur.
Thanks so much, guys, and I appreciate it. And I just hope there's some lessons in amongst that for people, so they can go, oh, yeah, that there's a direction it can take. And the more successful entrepreneurs we have, like, I don't really like that word, to be honest. But the more successful entrepreneurs we have, the better the world will get.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks,
Pleasure.
Randall.
Wow, that was a really interesting conversation, Matt. I'm glad that you invited Randall to join us.
Yeah, Randall's a great guy, lots of good stories, and I think some great lessons for our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that he said, what really stuck out for me was his thinking that, as a first-time entrepreneur, doing that for the first time, there's so much that he could have learned from the mentors and others around him, sort of, having those coaches and mentors around him who could sort of shepherd him through the process. So, one of the things you mentioned about constraints of the mind, like getting out of your own way would allow you to be more successful in that environment. I love that. I also love the focus on the importance of thinking about where you get your valuation from, right? That, that IP gets you, multiples of revenue as opposed to, a services company kind of will get you more of an EBITDA multiple. So how being able to think more about where ultimately you're trying to take the organization, and how having that kind of IP technology capability piece of it was important. And the third thing that I thought was great was this thinking about where innovation should happen and how it should happen in the organization. That basically it happens as a bottoms up process. You give people the time to get out and do the innovation. You're not trying to drive it from the top. You're not making everyone generalists. You're creating specialists, but then you're also having these people that can come in with, let's say, that technology capacity and work with others to come up with really creative IP and ideas. So I thought he was a really interesting person to hear from. So I'm glad you had him on.
On that last point, Rondo, I think it's great. I think that the one thing I would add to that last point is the idea of find an important problem to solve for your customer, client, and
Yeah,
consumer, et cetera, and then direct people through a particular lens to be able to understand, tying all that together, like what's that going to mean to the valuation if we find this problem? How do we think about that problem through the eyes of the customer? How do we provide oxygen to and capability to nurture that? I think that was
yeah.
all kind of came together a little bit nicely at the end in terms of his sort of reflections.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that he actually wanted a forever company. As he said, most, entrepreneurs go into this thinking about, when's that, end game coming. But he was sort of like the reluctant, sounded like more like the reluctant seller. He really wanted to grow a gun, continue to manage the business and have a going concern.
Yeah, I think that having an eye on that horizon like that is really helpful in terms of, almost you can imagine the quality, the care, you know what I mean? All those things
Right.
that a forever company has that, going to have that enduring quality to it, which under any circumstance, even if you're going to sell it tomorrow or never, it doesn't, it's never working against you, is it?
Right.
Mm.
Right. No, it was great. Great. Thanks
All
for
right.
having,
Well,
thanks for having
great,
him on.
Rondo. Thanks again. And you'll just encourage our listeners to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple if you want to hear more content like this. And we'll be back next time with the Insurgent Mindset. Great to see you, Rondo.
Likewise, Matt. Till next time.